I'm Justin Lorimer. I've got a channel called Tripinavan. We've got social media and YouTube. We have to tackle the jump up track to get out of here. Jump up track, Karratha. Thanks, mate. High five. Something that we've sort of come up with through this build process and going back and forth between me and Cam and Dean at Big Dog. Well, they've got so many customers that are out there touring, but a lot of them are first timers, or a lot don't have the sort of same experience as me in doing a bit of media and using different products and stuff. So sort of come up with a bit of a role. It's called the R&D Ambassador. So I get to use all the gear that Big Dog use, all their parts, all their different accessories, all their different vehicles. I'm not tied to any one. I have got the one vehicle that'll be mine, but I can still come down and grab a different platform. I can jump in a Chev or a Ram or an F-truck, and I can go for a spin, do a trip, give them real life feedback, like boots on the ground sort of R&D, and then we can work to sort of try and make things better for the end user. So it'll be good for everyone. Tripinavan started 8 years ago when we just sort of packed up and left. I had a good job in the mines. The mine I was at shut, and instead of going and finding another job, I thought, oh, I'll take my tools with me. We'll have a year off and we'll travel and we'll see what happens. And I'll probably end up working on the West Coast as a field service fitter. Here we are sort of nearly 9 years later, with 7 years on the road full time, getting to see a whole lot of the country that most people haven't. When we first left, I had a Mazda BT50 that I'd had as a work lease vehicle. So then when the mine shut, I paid out the lease fee, so I had this vehicle already set up. We found a van down the Central Coast. We were living in Newcastle at the time. It was about 55 grand, I think we got it for brand new. On-road van, 23 foot, no bells and whistles. One little AGM battery inside it. Battery monitor would go off every night because you were running flat. And that's what we travelled in for like the first 2 years. Documenting our travels was just a slow evolution. Like, obviously we always had a camera and we had young kids with us, so as parents you're always taking photos and stuff anyway. And then you've got to sort of rewind and think back 8 years ago, like caravanning wasn't really a young man's sport. Like, we can count on one hand the amount of families we met in the first 12 months of travel. So for us, and the evolution of the media where we got to is just a like right time, right place thing. We'd had our Facebook page and we'd have photos of cool locations, and I like to try and push the envelope, and we dragged our on-road van into places most people wouldn't. The videoing side of it mainly came from people that approach you and be like, oh, this really cool product for camping and caravanning. Do you guys want to use it? And be like, oh yeah, sick, but like, what do you want out of it? And they're like, oh, can you just send us a video or like some photos of you using it? And then that just grew, mate. Talking about products, which is what I call product passion, is not my thing, but talking about using the gear I have from experience is my thing. And that's where it sort of come from. Like, I love the fact that I've got the experience using it over so much time. I can give genuine feedback, and I think that's really quite valuable. What we found is that over the years of travel, we'd exhaust the places we could go with the gear we had. So an on-road van and a BT50, which with limited GVM and towing, to then wanting to be like, we want to go as off-road as we can, and we want to be able to have a rooftop tinny. You need different gear to go to different places to experience different things, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So we grew into getting a canopy and a bigger GVM and then a smaller off-road van. Did another trip with that, experience more off-road places, go more remote, bigger battery systems to enable you to be off-grid longer, more water. Every time we went around Australia, there'd be places on the map that we haven't ticked off yet, and we'd be like, why haven't we been there? Because we don't have the gear to get there. The build progress from the original BT50 went to a second BT50 with a pre-rego GVM and Norwell canopy. So that was the next stage for us touring-wise, was the canopy with the battery system inside, being able to take more gear, have the swags on the top and that. So we'd ditch the van and we'd head in and go to these off-road places just without the van. And then as sort of the technology grew rapidly over those next few years, we went to like a full off-road van with airbag suspension and a big lithium system. Yeah, it was just a mad sort of changing of vehicles as the technology grew, and we'd be like, we can actually go to all these places and do this sick stuff, eh? Tray and canopy wise, with Norwell, we've worked with them and used their product for 7 years now, through multiple builds. The first Norwell come around by researching, loving the look of them, following a lot of people with Norwells and stuff, and going, this is what we're going to work towards. I was very fortunate enough to meet the guys at Norwell and stuff and become a partner and part of the Norwell Dream Team, they call it. And so we've just rotated through different Norwell builds. Once you've toured and travelled in a vehicle with a canopy on it, it makes it really hard to go back. And in 2019 was the 200 series. Everyone's seen them on shows like All for Adventure and stuff, and you're like, these has got to be like the ultimate tourer, right? And the chop itself was like 65 grand just for the extension. Did a J-Max chassis extension, so that's 650 mil of wheelbase extension. They cut your wagon in half, a brand new wagon that you just spent. At the time, it sounds cheap now, it was 83 grand for a GXL wagon. You say that now and that sounds like you can't even buy a Ford Everest for that probably, but yeah, it was a lot of money, a lot of time. It's a big process in, cutting the damn thing. It's a second stage of manufacturer, a lot of engineering approvals go into it. But what it gives you, which is what I needed, is a big GVM upgraded and towing capacity. So at the time, it was the best you could get, and it was a 4495 GVM, just under 4.5 tonne. And you retain that 4.5 towing. So yeah, with a train canopy that weighs about 550 kilos, plus the wagon, chopped down, plus your family, then your tow ball weight and stuff, it was about the only option you could do to keep touring. But 200 was a magic vehicle, hey? Like the only thing we had wrong was we did a diff on the gib, and I did a wheel bearing somewhere else as well. And I reckon they were both related. Silly me, when we built it, I was gonna put 35s on it, thinking that it'd look better, but then sort of realised the better option was to run 33s or a better touring tyre. But I'd already done the diff gearing in the rear diff, or both diffs, and I'm pretty sure that it ended up failing from just an incorrect install. So that's the only real issue we had with it, eh? So for us as a touring vehicle, it was pretty damn reliable. So when the American Utes and that first hit the market, I've always liked them. Like, they look like a great vehicle, but in 2019 or even 2020, to me, as a practical sort of build, they didn't really quite make sense, because I'd had so much experience in touring. I know how remote I wanted to go, and I knew if I had an issue with a vehicle in a place, some of the places we go, and I'm not really sure on how to fix it, or who else in the country knows how to fix it. That was a big question mark for me on reliability and safety for me and the family. Things have changed massively as well, after the next 6 years of American Utes being in, a lot of people working on them, parts becoming more available. They're not as scary an option, they're not an unknown. There's so many more of them touring around the country now. So sort of 6-7 years ago, I was very hesitant, and that's changed a lot. They were always overdone too, I think. Like sort of 5 or 6 years ago, if you had an American Ute, it was either go big or go home. It wasn't really done the way I do things, which is sort of just fit for purpose and functionality. So there was always that bit of a stereotype that came with people who had American Utes, which didn't really sit well with me, but I think that's changed a lot as well. Looking at new vehicles in 2025, 2024, to be able to do everything I want, I need big GVM to have a tinny and a canopy on top if I want. I need to be able to tow big gear. My van's like 4 tonne or over, my boat's over 3.5 tonne. I need something that I'm not going to be limited by. And in the Australian market, like, what do you got these days? Things like Toyota and Mazda and bloody, or Volkswagen or anything, none of these vehicles can do what an American Ute can do now. So you start researching and looking into what's the best fit for purpose vehicle for you, for what I want to do. And there was only one of 3 platforms, like the Ram, the Chevy or the F-Truck. So you want to be able to have tried and tested gear, and you want stuff that looks good. So aftermarket parts that suit the vehicle, and you drive it around in something that looks, if not as good as OEM, or better. Before we decided to go the American Ute, I got a 300 series built, thinking that Toyota, had a 200 series, it's been a great car. 300 series, it's gonna have to be good, doesn't it? They've been good ever since bloody 40 series, 60 series, 80 series, 100 series. So we got a 300 wagon, and don't get me wrong, they're a good car, but they feel like a car. It didn't really seem fit for purpose once we got into it. On paper, yeah, it was gonna do the build to tow anything that was under 3.5 tonne, So when we did do that build, we were gonna downsize. We were gonna get rid of the 200, we were gonna get a smaller van that we could tow with a 3.5 tonne capable vehicle. Then once we started doing it, I just kind of didn't like it. They're still a great car, still a Toyota, but me personally, I didn't like it. Yeah, didn't like the sound of it. I didn't like the way it towed, and I didn't like it as a full drive. Working with Big Dog has been a fair process, mate. As anyone will go through, it's been from hitting them up on socials, to then emails, to phone calls, to having visits, talking about what we need the vehicle for, what we're gonna tow. What's your family demographic, you know what I mean? How many people you're putting in it, what do you want to achieve out of this? And then from there, we go back and forth with like parts. How big a lift do you want? What tyres do you want? What wheels do you want to put on it? You know what I mean? Battery setup. How much power do you need? What are you going to run? It's just been a constant sort of two-way conversation about finding the best parts and suitability of what I'm going to use the vehicle for. It's pretty much like a house build these days. It's like a turnkey package, right? So you don't have to deal with a car dealer. You don't have to pick it up. You don't have to take it to get a bull bar or get tyres fitted and all that sort of stuff. There's a lot of hassle and logistics that's not in your court, and it's stress less, you know, knowing that it's not the first car they've built. 620 of these before mine. If they ever did get anything wrong, it was probably on the first dozen or so, not the last 600. So it's good peace of mind knowing that your dollars are going to someone who knows what they're doing, and you're getting a good turnkey package at the end that's gonna tick all the boxes that you've given them at the start. Very knowledgeable Dino. When you're on the phone, you'll bring up a certain product or something, they'll be like, nah, don't worry about that one. Like, we'll run this one. I'm like, well, why? Is that because like you like it better or what? He goes, no, it's because it's what works best on the car, you know? I'm like, all right, that's sweet. So they're good. They're not just trying to give you something that's not going to work just for the sake of it. If they know it's not going to be fit for purpose, even if you want it, they'll tell you. So the build process for us is going to run in two parts. So stage one, we're going to call it, is pretty much just getting the vehicle ready for touring. So we're going to leave the tub on it. We've done this suspension lift. We've left the springs the same in the back. Just put airbags in, just so I can put the tow ball weight of the van or the car on it and just put a bit of air in the bags. And then got the roof rack, got some lights, got an under-seat battery system, just enough to get us out touring and be able to power stuff up, have a fridge in the back of it, tonneau cover on the top to keep a bit of dust and stuff off it. Stage two is we'll come back in a couple of months, and it's going to put the tray and canopy package on it from Norwell, and we're also going to run a bull bar and a winch up the front with the spotty or an integrated light, and then we'll reset the springs just to take the extra load and get it riding right. But having a new car, there's nothing like having a new car, and for me it's a whole new platform, so I've got heaps more to learn, heaps more gear that I've never used on it, so that's new as well. I've got a couple of blokes I can now work with and go back and forth in Cam and Dean, a lot of experience, and just being able to like tow my gear. If you guys don't know me out there, I've got some big gear, and cars work hard towing it around the joint. So I'm super excited to get in this and just give it a real workout. But this is going to be unreal. New platform, new car again, new car smell, new tyres. How good are new tyres? They always look better than when they're even 2 days old. They look bloody good. Got all this new fruit to play with, and I'm just keen. I'm that keen. I'm actually like, we were here one night, tomorrow night I'll actually be camping out of it. So I'm going to give it a real good test. I can let you guys know all about it, and I'm bloody excited. Big Kev excited.